Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion Podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions Podcast with your host, Ernest James. All right, let's go. Welcome to the show. I am Ernest James.
And I'm Ervin James.
And this is the Earn Erv Podcast, where we are talking family, faith, and fatherhood, plus a little bit of foolishness thrown in the middle.
And our mission is to have all the conversations that will change our communities. It is our belief that a strong family is also the foundation of a strong community.
All right. Make sure you guys are following us on all of our social media platforms. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, to again, all of our social media pages, and subscribe to listen to our podcast on all of our podcast listening platforms. Also, make sure you check out our partner podcast, the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and also the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. Both of those podcasts, make sure you check those out. And when you go to our YouTube channel, we also have those two podcasts on the same YouTube page. So when you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you will get the Earn Erv Podcast, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast and the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. All right. So first thing we want to talk about is our product of the week. As you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you products that you can purchase in order for us to keep to pay the bills, basically. So our product of the week, if I can find it, I don't have it in front of me. Our product of the week is our ebooks. You can guys do our ebook. Our product of the week is our ebook entitled the 4 core, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should receive from her father. If you're watching YouTube, this is why I usually hold it up, but I don't have it in front of me. So you can go to ebooksbyejames.com. That's ebooksbyejames.com in order to purchase that ebook as well as other ebooks. And also check out our Deal to Heal tees for our amazing inspirational tees that we have that you guys can purchase. But our product of the week for this week is our ebook, the 4 core. My mind is going blank. The 4 core, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should receive from her father. All right. So, Ervin, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm feeling blessed. I'm feeling good. About yourself?
I'm good. I was off today. I know you wasn't.
I wasn't out there freezing.
But I wish I was at work. You know, sometimes you be off and you're like, man, I wish I was working. But I was off today, so I did get a little bit of stuff done today. So first of all, we want to thank you guys for tuning in to the very first episode of the Earn and Erv Podcast, number 1. So on this particular episode, we really just want to introduce ourselves to you guys and let you guys know who we are and a little bit about us and our families. So as you may have figured out by now, we are brothers. I am the oldest of the 4 boys of our family, 9 siblings all together. And Ervin is, I don't know what number he is.
I'm number 7.
He's a 3rd boy.
I'm the 3rd boy, number 7 of 9.
All right. Yeah. So we just want to kind of introduce ourselves. Ervin, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit of tell the listeners who you are and what it is you do. We start there.
Okay. Well, my name is Ervin James. Have you heard before? Um, well, I'm a speaker. I'm a counselor. I'm a preacher as well, which from a long lineage of preachers. So that's like a usual thing. It was already in the family. Um, I'm a father of seven. Family of nine, father of seven. I didn't expect to have as many as I have, but it's a blessing, I guess.
Right.
But by profession, I'm a driver. I'm a truck driver. I've been doing that for about 18 years now. So that,
Union
that's
truck
my
driver.
yeah,
Union,
that's been my bread and butter right there. So
right, right. Yeah, so I like to throw that in there, a union truck driver, because
right,
when it comes to these building trades that we both are into, I definitely like to push the union because a lot of times the unions help us get to where we're trying to get to. So you are a union driver. I am a union bricklayer by trade, as well as um, bricklayer by trade, as well as, like you said, minister, preacher, same in that sense. Mentor, but also author, podcaster. This is my third podcast, so podcaster, speaker, also, all those same good things. Some of the things that we share. Don't have 7 kids, right?
you
I have
falling
one.
short, brother. You falling short.
I have one biological child, which is my daughter, and I have 4 sons by marriage, and so 5 kids altogether. Um, yeah, so pretty much, like I said, we grew up in a household, 9 siblings. Same mom and dad, all of us. Uh, through some
All
good times,
original.
through some hard times, and so one of the things we can talk about this because this is a different aspect. Growing up, so growing up when I was the oldest, but I think you were the baby at the time, during this time period before we moved, and when we lived in the city in Chicago, and we had the house, we called it the big greenhouse. And so I'm able to remember that part of our life, right? So my dad was working for the phone company. I don't think I said my dad as if it was our dad. So Daddy was working for the phone
His
company
habits, his
at that
habits.
time. Daddy's working for the phone company at that time, and we had the house on 63rd, I think it was 63rd Street. Big house, 2-car garage, picket fence, the whole American dream, pretty much. And I was old enough to remember that. So you were
Right,
the baby at that time. This is before our baby sister and brother was born. You were the
right,
baby at that time, and that was right before the big switch. We
right.
moved away to another state and came back. And when we came back, everything was different, right? So that's where kind of our hard times started, and growing up in that period, where we didn't have as much, right? I don't
Exactly.
want to say we weren't. I'm learning this new terminology that I want to use. We weren't poor, because poor is a state of mind, but we were broke, right?
Right.
Because broke is a financial condition. So we definitely were broke, but we weren't poor. But I think even with that, some of the things that we went through as a family definitely made us better. So just from what you can remember from, I know, like I said, I don't think you would even remember um, growing up in the big house, because like I said, you were
Right.
the baby at that time.
Yeah.
So I don't even think you remember that. But what recollection do you have? Because I don't even know if you have any rememberings of when we had moved to the other state before we came back to Chicago. But what was your earliest memories that you can
Oh
remember?
man, vaguely, because around that time, I think by the time we moved back from the state, I was 3, so I was still little. And so I didn't really have a lot of memories of that. All my memories came mostly when we moved back. Like you said, we didn't grow up poor, we grew up broke. you know, I mean, we were so broke it was close to poor, but just just that whole experience, though, you know, I can admire the way that our parents taught us growing up. You know, like you said, you know, poor is a state of mind. Even though we didn't have a lot, you know, our parents taught us we got each other. And once we know that we got each other, we're able to manage any and everything. So that's one of the main values that I've learned from them that I put into my children. You know, they haven't experienced the life we had to, but I still put those values in them for them to understand where we came from and make them to value everything that they have. So, I mean, man, growing up broke, it teaches you. It really does. It gives you a whole lot of real life lessons that many people just talk about, you know. But I think that's where that got us to where we are now. I really do.
Yeah, and that's why I say I want to embrace the new thinking of making sure that we make the I can't think of the word I want to say. Definitely make sure that we show the difference between being poor and being broke, because we were
Right.
broke, but we weren't poor. Definitely with mama and daddy, especially with mama, the way that she instilled in us, the things that she instilled in us, as far as love for one another, and as daddy will always say, respect me and love your mother, right? So those
Right.
love and respect, from mama and daddy, and then the way the mama taught us how to definitely love one another and value each other more so than we value things, right? So in the midst of everything that we went through, one thing we was always together, right?
Always.
So big or that, and that's one of the big things. And we talk a little bit about fatherhood, because definitely we're going to talk about fatherhood a lot in this podcast. But that's one of the things that I talk about when I talk about daddy a lot of times, is that when he were hit, he and we, because he was the sole provider for the family. So when he hit rock bottom, and you're talking about a husband, a wife, and 9 kids, so that's 12 of us staying in a 1 bedroom at your mom's house. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and it wasn't just for a couple days. Like, it was a
Right.
large amount of time. And I definitely appreciate Daddy, because at any time he could have been like, all right, I'm out. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Somebody taking care of a wife and 9 kids. You know what I'm saying? He could have very easily be like, you know what, I'm out. I'm gonna take care of myself, and that's what it's gonna be. But he didn't. He stayed with us, not only from there, but from building from there till to get back on his feet. When we end up moving to Markham, working on that house and building that up, even all the way until we moved to Dalton. You know what I'm saying? Like, I definitely have to praise Daddy for sticking with us. You know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
growing up, we had plenty of family and friends who daddies wasn't around. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And see, and especially for him, not only having to help raise 9 children, you also have the difference in in understanding and beliefs per se. You know, mom was in church, daddy wasn't, you know, but he was around it all his life, so he understood it. And I think that right there also helped to build the family to where it is now. You know, you can have faith and believe, you know what I'm saying, and trust in God no matter what where you at in life, you know. And for him, you know, just struggling just with addictions and everything, and like you said, and still he stuck around, you know, he was there, he did what he could, and him and mom together, they instilled in us some very strong values.
Yeah, yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about Mama, because of course she was the one that held it all together for the most part. And then actually, I won't even say that, because one thing I remember, I was having a conversation with our other brother Eric, and I remember him saying, kind of reminding us, like, in reality, because we always gave Mama credit, you know.
Yeah,
And I remember him saying, in reality, when we look at it, we spent more time with Daddy than we did with Mama,
you
right?
did.
Because Mama actually was, again, involved in church, so she traveled with the church and things like that. And even on a daily basis, or nightly basis, should I say, because we grew up having church every night, so a lot of times she was at church. You know what I'm saying? And if we didn't go with her, again, we was at home with daddy. So we actually did spend a lot of time with daddy, and it was like, man, just taking that in consideration then. And I wanted to mention it now, we was with daddy most of the time. So even though just automatically when you think about the family structure and uh, giving credit to how your family turned out and the upbringing and all that, you automatically give the kudos, to the mother, to mama. But just even saying that just reminded myself, like, wait a minute, we definitely got to give kudos to daddy because we did spend more time with him than we probably did with mama because mama was gone all the time. But that being said, the values that she instilled in us, especially when it came to family, definitely still molds us and how we interact with each other today,
Right.
and then we can see it in our the difference in our friends and families, friends and other friends and family,
Right.
outside of our core family, how those things that we were taught show up different in our adult lives than some of our friends and families,
Right.
who didn't have them same teachings, even some of how we were taught, like stick together. And then we look at some of our friends and families and they don't even have, they don't even talk to each other, some of them, or the same siblings, And
Right.
so it's just a difference in, the things that mama taught us and the way that we interact with each other today.
Right. But see, one of the main things, or I say one of the main reasons I think that we give mom so much props is because growing up, we with dad having dealing with alcoholism, we feared him more. So a lot of times we stayed away, even though we was with him more, we try to stay out of his way, So we always spent a lot of time with mom when she was home. But one of the main things that really stand out to me is the fact that even though he had an addiction, mom will always tell us and make us understand it don't matter about what he's going through. That's your father, and you will always respect him. So that was the main thing that really stood out in our minds. Like, even though he's got his struggles or whatever, that's father, that's daddy. You're gonna respect him as being the man of the house because he was. So I think that's what really, really stirred us. And then daddy himself, he had little words and little sayings and little quotes that, growing up, we was always quoting them and saying them, and people that was around there here, they said, because he was always saying it. But as we got older and we really started remembering those quotes, it's crazy how it was life lessons in each one of those quotes. We didn't see it as kids because it was just like, oh, daddy just saying something. But then when you got older and you start remembering it, and it's funny because we start saying it. Like we said to our kids, and then when we think about it, like, I'm surprised that it's stuck in my head. I don't even know why. Because there was a life lesson behind it. And, those values that they gave us, man, it made us into the people that we are. So I always value that. I always value family. Even when we get together, even now, sometimes the kids, the nephews and nieces, they always be like, man, every time y'all get together, y'all, it's always fun and laughs. And it's like, man, because all we had was each other. So if we can't have fun with each other, who we gonna have fun with? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It ain't no fun playing by yourself. You got 7 to 8 other siblings in the same area, and you sitting there playing by yourself. Something's wrong.
Right, right. But I want to go back to something you said though, because you were talking about daddy, and that was probably just a difference of view, a different point of view, should I say? Maybe just between us, from us, because you said that we kind of feared him to an extent, and so we kind of stayed away. And I do think that I wouldn't call it fear,
Right,
because even when not only did mama, definitely emphasize that we respect daddy, but he emphasized it. And that's
right.
how, I even mentioned earlier, because he would always say, respect me and love your mother. Right.
Right.
So
You think you
that was
bad?
his thing. Respect me and love your mother. Right. So he's like, I don't even care. And that's something I even instilled in my kids. Like, I don't even care if you like me. You know what I'm saying? Because especially, and then me, so as I mentioned before, I have one biological child, which is my daughter. So I have 4 stepsons. So as a stepfather, a lot of times your kids ain't gonna like you. You know what I'm saying? Just beside the button heads of just being a parent, which when they get to a certain age, you have to deal with that anyway. But as a step parent, you really have to deal with it because technically you're not their parent. You know what I'm saying? So, but that was one of the things that same mindset and those same values was something that I even instilled to them. Like, I don't even care if you like me, right? But you're gonna respect me and love your mother. The same thing that Daddy taught us. You know, respect me and love your mother, right? Because at the end of the day, as a father, we have to make the hard decisions. You know what I'm saying? We have to make the hard choices. We have to make the hard decisions that's in the best interest of the family, even when the family don't see it. You know what I mean? So whether it's the kids and sometimes even the wife, you know, you have to make those hard decisions like, okay, we need to go this way, you know, and sometimes they don't see it. You know, the wives don't see it. And so we got to bump heads. But again, respect me and love your mother. So even with that, like, okay, you might not like my decision, but you still have to respect it. You might not like me right now, but you still have to respect me. You know, and I think that even with mama saying that and with daddy saying that, you know, that's kind of where we were. We had a level of respect for him, no matter what condition he was in, whether at, you know, during the times where he was sober or during the time that he wasn't sober, we still always had respect for him. And still to this day, we still do. And thank God, you know, he was able to, you know, beat that addiction and now, you know, have a hold on himself. And that, you know, so let's talk a little bit about that, because I was by the time he got to where he was, you know, kind of had a hold on the drinking or whatever and was sober, I was married and out the house, right? And so it wasn't until after mom had passed away that I went to dad's house and he had the picture albums, you know, on a nightstand. And so I'm looking at the pictures and I'm seeing all these pictures of him and mama going to all these different places and all that stuff. And I'm like, when y'all do all this stuff? Like, where was I at? You know, but it was during those last, I want to say 7 years, I think it was, but like the last 7 years while mom was still here, that he was able to get a hold on that. And so they kind of like reliving their golden years all over again. You know what I'm saying? Because all the kids was grown. So we always, you know, had kids of our own and moved out, but they were able to.
Some of us moved out.
Some of us. Some of us moved out, but they was able to kind of, you know, like rekindle their love for one another, and then have those experiences of traveling and all that stuff that I didn't even know about. Like I said, until after mom had passed away.
Oh yeah, they was doing a lot, man. They was traveling. They was going out of town. They were going to dinners together. You know, mom always loved to dress, so she would get the suits the same color and the same styles. Her and dad would dress together, and they would go. And that was a special moment. That was a special time, like you said. But you know, it's crazy because, you know, even though I mentioned earlier when I said we feared him, we all still had our own different relationships with him, you know. For a long time, I would always go in the garage, you know, with him being a mechanic. I would come in and sit down and listen to the jazz music with him. And since I'm in there, he would be like, hey, hand me that wrench, or hand me that screwdriver, or hand me that socket, you know. And at a young age, he started teaching me how to work with my hands. And I will always be in there with him. And to this day, you know, I still do it myself. You know, if I ain't got a warranty on the car, don't worry about it. I can figure out how to change these parts and, you know, grab me some tools, you know, put my hands to the plow and make it work. So it's crazy how even through his suffering, he still taught us to be men, you know. He still taught us to be fathers. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't like, you know, for some people, they were like, oh, I'll never be like my father, and they were like this and that. You know, that ain't nothing. That's not what we say. Even with his issues and things that he went through, he was still an inspiration as a father to us, because he was still a father. You know, I would think back many times where he would walk miles to the grocery store I mean, he come back with Cheerios and cornflakes, but, but
Hey,
you know,
we have
he
to
will
give what
walk
we can afford, right?
right. But you know, but he will walk to the grocery store, you know, at the dead of night to get us something to eat and milk and cereal and whatever the case may be. And the blessing part is he didn't keep walking. You know, you got some people who father walk out and father never come back. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
They say they going to get some milk and never come back
Right.
with the milk.
Never made it to the grocery store, you know. And you know, stuff like that when you sit back and you look at it, man, you just admire the strength, really, the strength of him as being a man, raising 9 children, and the strength of our mother being a woman to stand beside the man, no matter whatever issues and troubles, you know, to hold the family together and to teach the family that this is us. We are us. We are all that we have. And I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that's I was going to say that I think that's the beauty of it, which was both of them together, and still having that same mindset to stick it out. Like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Like, it's me and you against the world with these kids. You know what I'm saying? And and we talk. I mentioned about daddy not leaving, but there are some situations where the mamas leave. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So even with that, because on mama's side, she had options too. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
by her traveling as much as she did with the church and things like that, she had the opportunity to dip out and never come back too.
Yeah.
But she didn't, and I think that it was both of them together with that set that foundation for the family that we have now. That's like, all right, we got to rebuild these family structures, rebuild this family foundation, which really is the cornerstone of our communities, is the family, which is why, and there's so many circles and so many policies, or should I just say outside forces, that has came in to destroy the family unit. Because if you can destroy the family unit, then you can destroy us individually, because we don't have the strength of the togetherness. So I think that is very important for us to build on those family values, to get back to that place where the family's at. And I remember, we was talking about mama. One of the things she always said is right to do right. Because
Yep.
she had her quotes too, right? Daddy had his, but Mama had hers too. But that's the one that kind of stick with me the most, which is the is right to do right, which was one of her things. That no matter what you're going through and how someone treats you or mistreats you, or all of that, you can't control their actions, but you can control your reactions, and your reactions need to be right, because it's right to do right. So yeah, so yeah, man. I know we said we was gonna introduce ourselves, but we end up talking about mom and daddy. But I think we can't even talk about ourselves without talking about our
Ex-
foundation and the families.
exactly.
And I
Exactly.
always say, whenever we do these podcasts, or any podcast that I'm on, we have our agenda, and then we have the agenda of the way God wants it to go. And so that's the way He wanted it to go. So that's where we at. So before we get out of here, man, I just want to say to our listeners, first of all, thank y'all for tuning in to the first episode of the Earn and Erv podcast. We definitely gonna be in this for the long haul. I look forward to see where this is gonna go. Even with our other guests eventually, that we'll have some guests on, some other fathers and probably some mothers, but just guests in general, just to have these conversations that I think is going to be good to build. And again, building a family structure back up, building that foundation, and just kind of mentoring and mentoring, that information that for our children, and as mentors that we are, that we definitely putting out information to help the family, but definitely help this next generation that's coming after us, male
Exactly.
or female, our kids and everybody. So again, guys, thank you guys for tuning in to the first episode of the Earn and Erv Podcast. Make sure that you guys, again, checking out our partner podcast, the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And Ervin, as always, I'll let you have the last words. So what you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, the last words I'll leave with you is positive thinking keeps the lifeboat from sinking. You know, you got to think positive. It doesn't matter where you are in your life. It doesn't matter what's going on. The more positive thinking that you do, the more you can build and get to where you need to be. So positive thinking keeps the lifeboat from sinking.
All right. So again, thank you guys for tuning in to the Earn Erv Podcast. I am Ernest James.
And I'm Ervin James.
So until next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you next week. Hi guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James. And on my podcast, my guest and I discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. So check out our podcast. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or even on Audible. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel at Deal to Heal with E. James Podcast. Until then, see you soon.